I want to cover the next. I want to talk a little bit about the CSM. We got a CSM announcement that came out, I believe, on Friday. Ooh. There we go. CSM announcement. There we go. Noble citizens of New Eden, it is once again the time of year that we set out to assemble the next Council of Stellar Management, which will closely collaborate with CCP Games on the ongoing development of EVE Online. The democratic elections we are about to embark on are a unique tool within the gaming industry, providing unparalleled access to developers and embodying the tremendous value that we see in shaping the future of the game hand in hand with the players who have shaped the world and history of EVE into what it is today. We cannot express enough how deeply appreciative we are for the dedication and passion of the EVE community has demonstrated in the game's nearly 19 years. And for every invaluable player who is ready and willing to offer their time and work for us to continue improving the world's largest living... and for every invaluable player who is ready and willing to offer their time and work with us to continue improving the world's largest living work of science fiction. All right. Though we're not able to welcome the council to Reykjavik this term for the yearly CSM Summit. Thanks to the flexibility and willingness of everyone involved, we managed to work around it and remained highly productive. Out of necessity, the world evolved, and we don't want to stay too far behind. While we will always strive to host at least one summit per term, we don't feel that the ability to attend one should be a requirement to run for the CSM, as members can contribute and add value throughout the entire term's length. For that reason, the CSM elections will be more accessible than before by being open to players who might not have been able to travel to Iceland. Another improvement, we are introducing this year the 72-hour application average processing time. In the past, due to the way we announced confirmed candidates for the first time after the submission period is over, we noticed situations where players were disappointed when their candidate did not pass our thorough internal review process. Our hope here is to give you some buffer to reevaluate your options and have time. Thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, which is EVE Online. Have time to find another candidate to put forward in case of organized player groups. All right, so let's take a step back and explain from the very beginning. All right, because a lot of people may not know anything about this. So just in case, the Council of Stellar Management, or CSM, is a player-elected body of players that are elected every year at about this time. Oh, gosh. Shh. Hold on. That are elected about this time, and they represent us to CCP. They are given... Actually, you know what? I actually have my announcement video, my introduction video from last year's election coverage. So I can play that to give kind of a background of what the CSM is. I said it better there. So let's go ahead and pull that up real quick.
Friends would walk up to me and
no,
like, your mug, and I would just tell them.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is my coverage of the CSM 16 election. Council of Stellar Management election time is upon us. By the time this video comes out, you will soon or already be able to cast your vote. Oh. And the people behind me are the people who want to represent you to CCP. These 36 candidates I have interviewed on your behalf to discover why they think that they should represent you to CCP. The Council of Stellar Management is a body of elected players that are elected by us, the player base, every year to represent us to CCP. The CSM, among other things, signed an NDA, or non-disclosure agreement, which allows CCP members to show things to them that may not be eligible to be shown to the public yet. The CSM has been a powerful tool for CCP to be able to vet ideas or posts to the public before putting them out, as well as a powerful tool for us as players to communicate to CCP our ideas and what is important to us. And finally, as a mediator between the CSM and CCP during some of the most critical junctions of drama and meltdowns in EVE history. The CSM has also been abused in the past, and there are concerns about block voting and other such things, and how the votes may not matter. The problem with this is that idea is what weakens the CSM. The CSM is only as good as we make it. If we send them quality representatives that represent us to them in a way that fosters good development, then we all win. If we decide not to care and default to candidates that are maybe more cynical or don't properly represent us, or just default out of the CSM altogether, then we lose what powerful tool we have available to us. The process I used was standardized as much as I could between each candidate, so hopefully each interview seems roughly the same. In the center, there should be their alliance logo, although sometimes I did opt for some alternatives. And I get 50 minutes to discover what about that candidate might make people vote for them. After I take my 50 minutes, I give them a 10-minute warning in which they can go over anything that they would like to, give any final thoughts, or reinforce any important points. And then it goes over to the playlist, which you're about to watch, so that way you can see all of the different candidates and make an informed decision. I tried to keep it as fair as possible, but I also did not try to be unbiased. I let my own positions play out and also shared my experiences prior to candidates and showed my support when I felt it was appropriate. However, my goal was to make sure that each candidate showed as strong of a version of their platform as they possibly could, knowing full well that many of my voters may not necessarily agree with me or what makes a good candidate. So I hope that everyone can agree, and it seems so far that all of the candidates had a really good conversation with me, and I think that we all learned a lot. Mostly, I'm just really thankful that I'm able to do this. While I have done these kinds of interviews in the past, this was only possible because this is my full-time job. I've recently returned back. Yeah.
Back
Okay,
to
great.
Eve.
Yep. Fine. So this was kind of what I had to say about the CSM at that time, or at least my cover, both the CSM and how I was going to cover it. And my feelings have not changed. I'm likely going to be attempting to be as close to that as possible this next CSM election. So I'll be doing the same interviews again with a 1 hour total goal, with me getting 50 minutes, me giving them 10 minutes, willing to go late if I want to, etc. You should run for CSM. Should I run for CSM? No, I don't want to run for CSM. I think that, first of all, I have a lot more fun talking to everybody, but I did run for CSM once, and it was brought to my attention, and it really resonated with me, that not only do I not really need to be on the CSM for like lore related stuff, because that isn't going to be CSM stuff anyways, but being under an NDA would mean not only can I not talk about things, but I wouldn't be able to speculate on them either. I can't speculate on something that I might actually know about. You know what I'm saying? So like, for instance, later on in this video, we're going to be talking a lot about FanFest and what my predictions are for it. If I was to know anything about that, then of course I wouldn't even be able to speculate. Not that the CSM know very much about this particular FanFest, but you see my point. So, and finally, like I've gotten to know the devs, especially enough that, you know, I can talk. I know who to reach out to give my feedback to. I don't feel like the CSM would give me any additional conduit to CCP that I already have. So I feel like I can do a much better value for the community by doing these interviews and such. So, oh yes, there was yeah, Zenuria allegedly, Zenuria made a post on Reddit today saying that about his NDA being expiring. So now you can talk about what happened. And he does put up a pretty bleak image of things. I'm not going to necessarily go and get into that too deeply. But what I will say to people is that all of the information that he could possibly have that was under NDA is now 6 years old. And CCP is a fundamentally different company than it was 6 years ago, both in administration, in ownership, in strategy. So, oh, hold on. Oh, so here is here's the current CSM, where we have Brisk Rubal, Gobbins, iBeast, Innominate, Kenneth Field, Merkelchen, Mike Azariah, Pro God Legend, Satonia, and Villy. And as we're about to learn, we're not going to have all of those back. So CSM terms come into effect. Serving on the CSM is a feat, and not even the most valuable members, need to take a break to recharge their capacitors. Following the announcement of a 3-year term limit at the start of CSM 15 elections, we will have several current members go on cooldown for a year at the end of their term in June. We want to take this opportunity to thank them for their contributions and wish them an excellent year enjoying spaceships without the duties of public CSM representation. So, you're right. Arcia took over when Pro God dropped out. So we have Innominate, Merkelchen, Gobbins, and Villy. None of them can run. And I'm going to talk about who I know might or might not be running this year. Timeline. So basically the 2nd through the 16th of May is going to be submissions opened. So it's still like a week or more out before they can submit things. And then it'll be another 72 hours after that they'll start approving things. I also imagine that the 24 hours before FanFest might be really bad for such things. So I imagine that we will start seeing the actual candidate list start to roll out over after FanFest proper, up into the 16th of May, which means it ends on the 17th of May. That's the second time that number has come up today, just so we know. Then from the 9th to the 20th of May, application processing. Oh, yeah. So they're not even going to start processing the applications until the 9th. So chances are we won't see anything until the 12th. 25th of May, live candidate announcements. So by the 25th of May, we will have the full stock of people. And from the 25th of May to the 5th of June, we'll have a campaign period. Now, this process is different than before. We have the removal of the requirement for you to submit a passport, I assume, because you no longer have to travel to Reykjavik. But now you have to get approved before you can even post, which means we will have, we could potentially have a pared down slate this year. So last year, it's always been that your CSM thread post, which goes on this CSM forum, there's an official Council of Stellar Management CSM campaign forum that you have to put on. It was last year. You have to put a post up here as part of your application process. However, the problem was that a couple of people, including Extra Squishy, put up a post, campaigned for a few weeks, and then got denied to run. And so, Bad Blood Studios, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole. So what that meant was, that was a big upset to especially fans of Extra Squishy. And so that is the reason why this year they want to process things. You can't announce yourself as a full-fledged candidate until you've been approved. I like this change a lot, not least of which because I think I interviewed 3 or 4 people that ended up not qualifying. I'm not saying that it wasn't without cause that he was denied, but the point is that there was a lot of momentum, and CCP cut it off, if that makes sense. So it left a lot of bad blood, and CCP would just like to avoid that. Oh, cool. So Juge Twitch, I think. Thank you for joining us. All right, so but even with the approval process, we still had, I think, 45 candidates last year, 35 of which I interviewed. So my stream, once this goes live, I will be try to be getting like 2 to 3 interviews a day if possible. And it'll be all times of day probably. So feel free to follow the stream and my Twitter to catch those when they go live. They're more impromptu, obviously, because it's whenever the scheduling works. But I really hope to get as many people as possible this year. Well, every year. All right. Important disclaimer. Incorrectly filled out or incomplete submissions will be rejected. The rules are unambiguous, but we are happy to answer the questions. Your account must be older than 60 days. Character on both alpha and omega accounts are eligible to run. So it doesn't matter if you've only ever been an alpha, you can still run. You must have a history of honoring the EULA in terms of service. This is the thing that gets a lot of people, right? Like, if you have had run-ins with the law, as it were, they will use that against you in your campaign, or when it comes to the approval process. EULA TOS violations on your record can result in a rejected application. If you're unsure of whether or not you qualify, we strongly encourage you to apply early, as applications are now processed within 72 hours, or in 72 hours. After you receive confirmation, then you can then you can make a campaign thread with your EVE Online story, your areas of expertise, why you're applying for the CSM, and what can players expect from you, which is good. You are free to add more information and manage your campaign thread. By the way, I have a policy right now that I'm willing to. At first, I said I'm not going to interview anybody that doesn't have a campaign thread up, but then I realized that nobody's going to be able to have a campaign thread up for a little while. So my new rule is, if you're running this year confirmed, and you've already been on the CSM, then I'm willing to interview you before the approval process. All right. You're free to add more information. Campaign threads for candidates have not been approved, might be removed to avoid confusion. Your account must be updated and correct information at the time of your application. This includes real life name, correct date of birth, same email that you submit your application. Gray Seeker, thank you for joining us. Candidates must be at least 18 years of old. You must... Yeah, now it's passport or national ID card. So that probably helps at least some people. If you don't currently have a valid passport, we will accept a picture scan or a valid and approved passport application accompanied by a picture of your national ID card. Oh, well, either way. You must. I would like to have some clarity on that, but we'll see. You must consent to share your country of origin with the EVE community. They used to have to share their name. If you're running as an alt, they might make you change your name, or like show off that you're who your main is, I should say. You fill out the application between the 12th and the 16th of May. Submit your document and scans to this email. Create your forum thread. So, and this step must be completed after you receive confirmation of your application has been both processed and approved. Remember that applications can't be edited after you submit them, so triple check to see if information entered is correct. We'll be sending an email to all applicants, first to confirm that we received their application, and second after the internal screening process is complete. I feel like that is setting them up for failure. So, yeah, they said it seemed like they were going to go back to in-person summits. I suspect that we're going to see somebody that gets rejected early and then want to correct it to resubmit within the submission time. We warmly look forward to receiving your application. Like, if you get rejected because of a technicality and you go early, then you'd be really upset that you still have more than 72 hours for it to be reprocessed, but they're not willing to. You know what I mean? We warmly look forward to receiving your applications and following details of the many campaigns to come. We at CCP feel that we are far stronger and more efficient at developing and maintaining the unique world of Eve side by side with the CSM. By banding together with common purpose and resolve, and by communicating with each other in a straightforward manner, we can realize our shared ambitions for the intrepid and limitless futures of EVE Online. So, as I said in the video earlier, the CSM is actually incredibly important. Now, people during the election will attempt to convince you that it is not. They will attempt to convince you that it's not worth voting. The blocks control everything, etc., etc. Any pessimism like that supports the big blocks, right? Because they're motivated, so they're going to vote. And the only way that we get representation is by quality votes. So if you want to start a little bit early and get an idea for things, here is my Notion page where I put out all of the different CSM campaign posts, or my campaign CSM interviews from last year. And I've already started building out the one for this year. Fonsui, they said that they are going back to in-person, but they specifically say at the very beginning, hold on. At the very beginning, they specifically say, we don't feel that the ability to attend one should be a requirement to run the CSM, as members can contribute and add value throughout the entire term length. And I interpreted that as the inability to travel to the summit, i.e. no passport, is not a disqualifier. I could be wrong, but that is how I interpreted it. My cat. All right, so let's see. Hold on a second, real quick. So my CSM coverage of 17 is not complete, or is only starting to get fleshed out. But these are the candidates that I am tracking as having cited that they're interested in running. I know that of the current candidates, or of the current CSM, let's look at them. Brisk has indicated he is not running. Gobbins, I believe, is one of the disqualified ones, right? Let me just close this window. Yep, Gobbins is disqualified because of term. Is it not problematic when half the CSM is from one block? Well, like I said, the only way that we prevent that from happening is by having sufficient energy in the countervote. They get, the election goes to where the votes go. Brisk is running? I swear to God, he said that he wasn't. Did I just misunderstand him? Oh, I must have misheard it, because I was, yeah, okay. I misheard it. I thought he said that. I legitimately thought that he said he wasn't. He said he didn't want to, but he still would. Yeah, okay. So Brisk is probably running. Gobbins is not. iBeast, I don't know about. Innominate is not eligible. Kenneth, I don't know about. Merkel is not eligible. Mike is not. ProGod has already quit. Satonia is not eligible. Villy is not eligible. Arcia might be running. So, got it. So, of the people running, we have probably Brisk, or of the previous people, probably Brisk, maybe iBeast, maybe Kenneth. And that's it. And maybe Arcia. 4 incumbent members means that this voting series is wide open, which is pretty cool. Yeah, the Imperium voting block is incredibly strong. They've proven its effectiveness, but that doesn't mean that they get all of the things. And honestly, like, I mean, as I said, we get the representation that we vote for, you know? So if you're interested in having something being represented by, or having a certain CSM candidate on there, the only way you're going to get them on is by voting. It may not work, but it certainly won't vote to not work. Or it certainly won't work to not vote, rather. In fact, that only aids them. So don't be discouraged, and realize that, like, the CSM has been incredibly effective in past years, and probably at least some this year. But we will see. Now, I will. Yeah. I know that there is a effort that I am going to be participating with by Urschlag and some others to construct a independent capsuleer vote. The goal of which would be that we effectively have a primary process where we get as many people to kind of commit to being part of the same voting block as possible, to be able to have, like, negotiating argument power, because we say, oh, we have this many votes. And then as a block, we decide what we want to vote on, and then we vote on it as a block, as an attempt to, it's very hard to organize high sec and wormholes and all these kinds of things. And so, if it's going to be block based, then hopefully we're going to be able to work on having a block for everybody else, if that makes sense. So stay tuned on that. There's going to be more information coming soon. All right. Close that, close that, close that. I think that's it for the CSM. What do you need to do? Well, if you're not running, then you don't need to worry about it until the 7th of June. So on the 7th of June, there will be the voting period. And the way it works is a single transferable vote. So you'll be able to vote on, like, 10 different candidates if you want to. And basically it goes cycle over cycle. If somebody gets enough votes to be over threshold, then they get elected, and their extra votes that they didn't need are proportionally distributed to their, the second vote or the next vote down in the ballots of the people that voted for them. And if there's nobody who crosses threshold, you just take the lowest scored person and you eliminate them and distribute their votes the same way. So that way, basically, there's as much of a chance as possible for your vote to, quote unquote, count and be effectively used to elect somebody. That being said, what this means is that it's incredibly important to get number one votes for candidates, because if you don't have enough number one and number two votes, you can very easily get eliminated before other votes from other other people get eliminated, and maybe they all had a bunch of votes for you, but if you get eliminated before the other person does, then when he gets eliminated, then your votes go past you too, because you've already been eliminated. So it's really important not just to vote for the people that you care about, but make sure you get you really, really care about your first, second, and third votes, because those are those number one votes. Every year, at least one candidate gets knocked out early, even though they would have votes coming to them later. So